So I was meditating this afternoon, and I got into sort of a conversation with Arazu, which is what the Greeks called Osiris. And
You've
I've
had lots
been
of
channeling.
contact with Arazu, haven't
Yes,
you? Yeah.
for at least a
Years.
decade. Yeah. And at one point, Arazu was saying that he fragmented his soul into 14 pieces. This is a story, the myth of him being cut up and distributed. He said he fragmented himself into 14 pieces and scattered them into incarnations onto the planet. And since more recently learning about Anunnaki things and the breeding of humans, I've been wondering. I said, well, so did you mean your soul went out, or did you mean you spread your DNA? And the answer was the same thing. And I was like, what?
He says the same thing.
It's the same thing. Your soul and the DNA. And I said, how does that happen, right? What does that mean? Show me how. And the idea is that your soul actually manipulates the DNA, and it causes it to express in the way the soul wants. So when a baby's in utero, the soul actually is going in and tinkering with the body. And because, DNA isn't, you have this gene, so this is expressed. It's more like a library from which you can choose.
Oh, I see.
That's like Bruce Lipton's work. He talks about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes, a couple of things. In a family, somebody can look really different from the rest of the family. My family is short. I am really tall. My mom's 5'1". I'm 5'9.5". How did that happen, right? And the other thing is that I have a friend who was walking, and I didn't know her before. I only knew her afterwards, but she told me all about it.
She was walking?
A walk-in?
A walk-in, okay.
So
that's like a new one, isn't it? A new...
Right. What happens is a soul in a body finishes what it wanted to do in this lifetime, and instead of dying, it has an agreement with another soul, usually or almost always a really advanced soul, who wants to come in and not go through the whole childhood thing to take over the body. And often there's an accident in a car or a very severe illness that allows the first soul to exit. So after she came back, she got very sick, came home from the hospital. She was like, "Why? Who is this husband? Who wears these clothes?
Good grief.
Oh my God, I'm a court reporter? How can I stand that? That's horrible." And she said right away for a few months, she was just like spinning in heaven. She had such a connection to spirit. So all that other stuff she didn't worry about. And then gradually that kind of slipped away, but it was like 2 years.
Gradually the truth came through. She was now in 3D. Crap.
Yeah, it came down. But in the process of this, her body changed significantly. She lost 25, 30 pounds. She was very slim afterwards. Her hair got blonder and her face got longer.
Wow.
And this happened to her in her 30s, so it's not,
like
it's not a growth spurt or something. Yeah. So I just thought that, and then she became a spiritual channeler. So the soul does control the body. That makes sense. Plus, when I've gone and looked with people, like if you're looking at pre-birth planning or looking at pre-birth in utero stuff, just exploring it for whatever reason, if somebody was interested, I see that the soul actually comes into the body, and because the body has its own consciousness, the soul has to kind of come in and get the body's consciousness in alignment with it, so they're working together, and also it's almost like it has to take over. There's a period of time when the body's going, "No, I'm doing fine just the way I am," and the soul comes in and says, "I want to rule."
You need a personality, darling.
Who's going to be the boss? Right. Wouldn't you like a soul?
Yeah.
And evidently not everybody has one, so
as we've talked about
not
before.
all bodies accept that, right?
So come back to Osiris then.
Yeah. So the idea is that it's like the DNA is the translation tool, or the
library, like you said.
Integration from the soul comes in, and its energy is expressed through the DNA. I just think that's really a fascinating idea. So when looking back at the the stories about the Anunnaki or whoever it was interbreeding and creating the human race, was it a science DNA thing or was it a soul energy thing that changed the DNA? I just thought it was interesting to look at it that way.
Well, even if he said to you that he broke himself into 14 pieces, whereas I thought the story was that his brother cut him up. That there was somebody to blame for that.
Right.
Was it his brother?
What I remember is that it was actually his brother Set, who was kind of the technician who did the.
So maybe he had requested it of his brother.
Right, genetic type of stuff. More of the genetics and all of that. So DNA is flexible.
Yeah.
And what changes it in Bruce Lipton's study is your state of mind, your emotional state, right? So people who are perpetually in fear or shame have certain chemicals, and then their cells, when they reproduce, they create more receptor sites for those chemicals, and those chemicals go in and activate specific genes. So the cell, that's not the brain of the cell, the nucleus, it's sort of like a library from which the soul can pick and choose.
Which means that once we can harness that and understand that better, if we're using all our brain, or those DNA start zipping up, then we can be anything we want. I can come to you as a black woman or a Chinese woman or a man or an alien or something, I suppose, if there is any alien DNA still in the library, that we could choose anything. Right. We could be something different every moment, couldn't we?
That makes sense, because what else I got from him was that what they're calling junk DNA is just a huge expanded library.
Yeah.
And when we're able to access it, we can change completely whenever we want.
Shape-shifting.
I just think that, I know, that explains how it happens. And it just, I don't know, I hadn't quite grokked that concept that way before. That is it.
Yeah. And I think...
kind of interesting.
So Cosmic Agency, because the one she's dealing with there is not a channel, it is apparently a 5D Pleiadian. I thought Pleiadians were more advanced than that, but I'm assuming there are many levels just like there are in humans. And so the girl she's talking with has talked a fair bit about DNA as well, and said that, like you said, all the junk DNA is, a lot of it is not zipped up, where it would make a lot more sense to scientists, but also there's many more layers to it that they can't see because it's not in 3D. It's in the energetic body. It's in the higher planes, higher dimensions, and so, or densities is what she likes to talk about.
Right.
So as we ascend, then we'll suddenly go, oh, look at that! There's a whole lot more, and we'll see a whole lot more of what's there.
I'm really looking forward to getting free from the old energy programs and all these limitations. It's
well, apparently, in theory, we're already free. We are. And a lot of the new children that are coming through, who are being born now after 2012, a lot of them have already got that sussed. So I think that it was announced in the press a long time ago. I don't know if I'll be able to find it because it's not recent, but it was saying in England they discovered a child with a triple strands of, instead of a double helix, it was a triple helix of DNA. And they reckon it was the first on the planet. I thought, every hospital wants to boast that. But in fact, those kids have been coming in quite a while. It's just that most of them don't need a hospital and haven't been there for them to check up on. So, and because these kids have more strands, well, they're zipped up. I think we've all got them, haven't we? I remember what the story is.
So what do you mean by zipped up?
That you know how they show you DNA, usually it looks like a ladder that twists and then it breaks apart and they've still got little unplugged bits, that all of that will zip back up and plug back in.
So does that mean if those bits are connected, then we can't
have more
access
powers.
That DNA?
No, it means that we have a lot more powers.
I misunderstood the way you were saying that. I thought you were saying they were zipped up and now we're unzipping them.
No, other way around.
But you're saying, okay.
And if there's a triple strand, if this kid has got a triple strand, what does that look like? Does it look like 3 long verticals with all the bits plugged in? And if the potential is 12, that's what I've always heard, 12 strands, then what does that look like? Does it maybe curve around in a little circle, make a spaghetti, a hollow spaghetti, like a pipe? If all the verticals go down and then they curl around and join each other, and then you've got full connection.
I suspect somehow there's going to be some type of toroidal shape, because that really is a fractal.
True. Of universe,
in looking at fractals, the universe is very toroidal. Yeah.
Very so then the ends would join too. That makes sense. So we start with a tube. Well, if we've got our 2 and then we get 3 and 4 and then they curve around and connect to each other, so we've got our little hollow spaghetti. But then if it turns in on itself and makes that shape. Toroid, did you say it was? I think it is, isn't it?
Torus or toroidal, yeah.
A torus.
Torus.
Right. Then that will means everything is connected. It's all. That surely would be the full potential of where we're going. How cool. It would blow us away. That movie, Lucy, that talked a little bit, it was a bit inaccurate, but there's lots of good things in there as to potential of being able to, alchemy, like breaking things down into dust, or I'm trying to think what else she did in that movie, but there were sort of demonstrations of things that were possible, as well as being able to just look right down, scan the body. Oh, you need this and this and this, and eat organic, you'll be fine. I remember her saying to her flatmate as she walked out, "Oh, you're in trouble, but eat organic and you'll be able to sort that out." And she walked out.
Interesting.
Never saw her again.
I never actually saw it.
Yeah, no, it's a good one to watch, because a lot of those sci-fis, they have a mix of fact and fiction, and you don't know if it's deliberately designed to not give you the truth, or if it's just that the movie makers have picked up on some pieces and they've guessed the rest. They never give you the full truth in those movies.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's probably a little of both.
Yes.
So I was just thinking, we were also talking recently about Mary Magdalene and Jesus and their relationship. And that thought came to me because we were thinking of the torus and the DNA strand, and I remembered the vision that Tom Kenyon wrote about when he channeled Magdalene, which is you're reading now, and I'll
just got it here. I'll just show it here. See?
There you go.
Just started reading it. Lovely.
And it's been a long time since I read it, so I don't remember it exactly, but I do remember him saying that Jesus and Mary would have tantric relations and build the energy up, going like DNA does, until it would drip into their pineal, connect to the pineal, and she would, through this process, they would charge him up, so he could go out into the world and do what he had to do with so much attack coming on him. I like that idea.
I like that too, because that matches other things that I've learned along the way as well. I don't know why I've seemed to be more exploring this at the moment when I look at, one area and I go, oh, learn all about that. Oh, let's learn about UFOs. Well, this is the sacred sex sides of things is very interesting at the moment. So Mary Magdalene, according to that manuscript, was trained in Egypt. And because the Egyptians had priestesses and initiates, and I haven't read enough of the book yet to understand what the difference is between the two, but both of them were trained in sacred sex. And because the Jews didn't quite understand how the priestesses worked, they would call them whores. And this is where that came from, that they assumed because Mary Magdalene wore the snake on her arm, the snake bracelet, that they would call her a whore. And that's where the church picked up on that. Probably, and I'm wondering if priestesses were there to basically train the men to do what Mary and Jesus were doing. If you have the coupling, the yin and yang wheel, you look at it from a different part of the world, it's the male and female together, that the woman is the receptacle who can charge up the man through her magnetic forces once they get each other to ecstasy, through natural means, probably, I'm assuming, not through drugs or whatever. And that charges up the man, and he can go out there. She becomes his wisdom. He can go out there into the world, and he's 100 times stronger, more powerful, and more magnetic to what he wants to manifest as well. So it's a partnership that has been taken away through religion. They don't want us to know this because it makes us far too powerful and far too psychic. It means that we can't see the truth if we know this stuff. And so many generations, thousands of years now, they've been knocking that knowledge about, burning it, burying it, killing off the people who used to pass it on by word of mouth to make sure that we don't know about it. And it's in so many different cultures, you look at the Kama Sutra in India, you look at Tantra, which I think is also Indian, I'm not sure. And Chinese have their yin and yang. I was reading, here it is, The Path of the Empress is another one, which talked about nuns who lived in a monastery who learnt this as well. So they were not solo. They had visitors, plenty of visitors to the monastery, if you can imagine. I don't know what, I'm assuming when you look into Scandinavia and Europe and the really old places before these new religions, that they would have had their pagan rites, which probably
I have
would have included that.
Memory of a past life about what you're talking about. I believe it's in an area what we would call France now, before the invasion of the northern Slavic, the warrior
the
guys.
Norsemen, yeah.
And I was a high priestess, and I woke up from having a dream vision, and it was like a dream I had where I was living this life. And I was like, oh no, because the vision told me what was coming, that the sacred feminine would be totally suppressed, and it would be for thousands of years. And when the Vikings came, the Norsemen came, I took in one of the soldiers, the leaders, the general kind of guy, and had sex with him. And in his mind, he was just sleeping with a whore, because that's the way they saw it. But
right.
I did that because I wanted to, for one thing, energetically, I was trying to soften his energy so fewer of my people would be killed. But also I was trying to help him to see another way, to have more respect for women. And it ended up being quite a bit tragic, because he started to fall in love with me, and he got harassed by his buddies, and so he like flipped and went kind of the other way. It got real dramatic, and I just dreamed this whole story. It was really, really cool.
Incredible.
But I knew that I would be coming back as a woman when it was time to bring the sacred feminine back to the planet.
That's today, Sarah. That's today.
Boom, boom. Well, and you and I both have done Tantra work.
A little bit. Just working
Yeah.
on a little bit. But it is, I really want to understand that better, because, you have sex through the years, and you go, yeah, it's just so short-lived, and it feels like just, scratching the surface, really. There's more to it than that. And so I think these kind of, we don't know where the Egyptian knowledge is. I believe maybe it was in the Library of Alexandria, which means most of it, if it was not burnt, was taken back to the Vatican Library. And they're not going to deliver it to the public, are they? Unless it is taken by force. So we'll have to look at other cultures.
Coming soon.
Yeah, at a space near you. Watch this space.
Yes.
But we do have access to Tantra and Kama Sutra, and some of the Chinese stuff seems to be, just peeking out a little bit. So there'll be a few more. There are other cultures we just have to look into until the Egyptian one is available, I think.
Yeah. I think I just want to put it out there to people that you have to be very careful when you're doing Tantra work. Make sure that you pick somebody who really is in integrity and knows what they're doing, because it's very powerful and it's really easy to manipulate people through it. I found a guy who was really great, and that was where the thing I learned was the phrase, nothing happens next. So he would say, okay, I'm going to touch you here and tell me what comes up. And I went, oh, God, and now you're going to do this and you're going to do that. He goes, nothing happens next. I was like, oh, well, what about this? Nothing happens next. This is it. And it brought up all these places from being a teenage girl, and pressure to have sex. And, if you kiss him, then he's going to think you're going to go to bed with him. And how far do you go? And if you're going on a date, if he buys you dinner, all of that.
Then
so it was really an interesting, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, currency.
Very, very interesting process.
Yeah, a lot of that seems to be very much about being present. Like the Mary Magdalene book talks about You must be totally, totally present. And so even though she was so highly trained and one of the most advanced in that area, I can't remember the names of them, something of Horus. Do you remember what they were?
No, too long ago.
Yeah, okay. That even though she had all this training, she was still, her knees were shaking. She was so excited as a woman to finally find the man that was her partner. And you think about it, if those dates are accurate in the Bible, they basically had 3 years together. That was it. That was it. You know, it's a fascinating book. It feels absolutely right. And Tom Kenyon is certainly one of these very high integrity people. Another thing you were talking about was the looking for a partner who's high integrity. I think that's also around them finding a way through their own baggage. Everybody has the responsibility to get through their own baggage to lift themselves higher. But if you the high integrity thing has to be people that will not be tempted either. So if you can build this kind of power, I think this is why they kept it secret for so long. You build that kind of power, you've got to make sure you're using it for good, for the benefit of the world as well as yourself, you know.
Well, something that's challenging about it as well is the splash out theory, because what humans as souls and as bodies want most is connection. And so when you have a moment of intimacy and of deep connection like you get when you're doing it right, splash out happens. That means it's like you have your vessel of your emotional history and you drop that beautiful gemstone in there and boom, splash out. The negative stuff comes out. And right. I've seen that. I had another dream of a lifetime when I was in Atlantis. And that was pretty fun too. I was like a scientist kind of woman, and I was in my 40s or so, I think, and I had a daughter in her 20s. And at one point she brought in a guy who we can sort of relate to being police, but it wasn't the same kind of thing. It was more like protection, you know, helping people when they're challenged, but not arresting them and laws and stuff like that. But at any rate, she introduced me to him, and then I psychically communicated with her. You know, is he yours alone, or can I have a try? And she said, no, I brought him for you. And that was fun. And I went and looked at how that worked out, because I was still in a committed relationship to my daughter's father. And where we lived we had a house with a central area where we could all join together, but also separate sections with separate entrances and separate bedrooms. So if we wanted to be together, we could be, but, you know, we didn't have to be 24/7. And then when I shared with that life, and her name was Maha, when I told her this is what it looks like to be in a committed relationship now, she was like, oh my God, you're so caught. There's nothing there. Oh my God, you can't do anything else. And it's so full of jealousy and rules. And she was just really blown away.
Yeah, I had that impression as well. I don't know if it was through the Cosmic Agency or through other things, and through the Mercuridan as well, 13th dimension high. And he's going, you guys have so many rules. It just limits you in so many ways that if you let go of possession and that you spend your time with somebody who you love spending time with that day, you know? And of course, if you have a child, then you are responsible enough to know that you have to be there to raise it. You make an agreement between the two of you that you will both be there to raise the child to independence, not till they're 18 and then you stop the child support, but till they are independent, you know? And in the meantime, if you want to spend time with somebody else, that's okay. And if your partner goes off and wants to spend time with somebody else, then you make yourself happy some other way. It's a completely different way from how the church has taught us to be.
And it's a complete different feeling than like the communes in the 60s. That was really a bunch of messed up people all getting off. I've read about it. I was not in one. I was too young, but not that I would have been. It wouldn't have been my thing anyway, even if I was old enough. But that it's full of jealousy and
competition,
passive manipulation and competition
and lust. You know, they talk about that being one of the seven sins. I think there's something in that. If all you want is a quick one, you know, with a body and not a soul or a personality or involving any love, then that's low end stuff. You know, that's really not what we're talking about here. Not sacred sex at all.
Basically, it's porn.
It is, yeah. There's no love in porn at all.
Yeah. And porn is dangerous. I mean, I've been reading some studies about it recently that people who watch a lot of porn stop being able to have sex with the real human. They're just addicted to the visuals. And then when they have a real live woman there, it doesn't work. So we have a lot to learn, a lot to remember, and a lot to look forward to.
And raise the feminine. Yay!
Dun, dun, dun.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
See you next week. Bye.